So today we're going to go through evidence-based coaching. Some of the concepts that I talk about today may be a little new to you guys, but this is just going to serve as an introduction, and then you guys can go and do some research on your own and try and apply all the principles and all the knowledge that I teach you guys today. If you have any questions during the session, just put your hand up, let me know. We will have like question time after every topic anyway. Toilets are downstairs. If you need to go, just feel free to go. Or if you need to leave early as well, just let me know. That's totally cool. So we're going to do some theory, and then we're going to go downstairs, do some practical stuff later on as well. Just some pretty basic stuff with the big lifts, just some technique work. In terms of the theory, I'm going to be covering like PT basics, so consultations, what you should be doing with your clients, how to provide value to your clients, based on my experience and what I've done in the past and what I've found has worked for me. And then we're going to talk about nutrition and about training, about the principles that you guys should really be understanding and trying to teach to your clients. Okay, so a little bit about myself. I've been coaching for about 4 years now, so straight out of school, got a job at Anytime Fitness, and I was working there for about 2.5 years. So I do know what it's like to work in a commercial gym. It was pretty tough, like early on, because I didn't know what I know now. I still remember for the first 8 months of my career at Anytime Fitness, I only had like 15 sessions a week. It was really tough. The demographic I was working with wasn't really suited towards PT. But slowly, I've worked my way up. And I was only thinking about this the other day. Like yesterday, I had like 13 sessions in 6 hours. As of 4 years ago, I was having 13 sessions in a whole week. So I'm going to try and teach you guys what I've learned along the way, and especially what I've learned in the past 2 years, where I've really been learning about the science of training, nutrition, and how to apply it to your clients. Okay, so I also doing a university degree, so in exercise science. Got like one subject left to finish that off. Done bodybuilding before, so did that last year, and I competed the year before that as well. And I'm also slowly transitioning to the education side of things, so doing more seminars. I just published an ebook on nutrition, A Simple Guide to Scientific Nutrition. It's on Amazon.com, so that's for PTs and just general population clients as well. Slowly transitioning into the education side of things, but coaching is definitely my number one job at the moment. Just a few of the people that I've helped transform. And we're going to start off with a bit of a survey. So if you guys can go to this website on your phone, it's just like a quick little quiz that we can go through. Get onto that. And so this is just for me to find out a little bit about you guys, just so I can tailor this session to your needs, to your experiences and things like that. So it'll ask you to put a code in, and the code will be up on the screen in a second. So just put that one in. It'll ask to put your name in as well, I think.
Which code is it?
.it.
Oh.
Yeah. .com will take you to a different website. Three more. Yep. Got this from a teacher, my mates. Cool. Is that everyone? So 6 months. Cool. So you're gonna have this is now. There's no right answers here. This is all open for interpretation. It's all your opinion on things and your your experiences. So let's go. How long have you been in the fitness industry for? So you've got to match the colours with the. What'd you click on, Andrew? What'd you click on?
I don't know. Hang on.
Is there about one more? You got 1 second, mate.
It logged me out.
You put your answer in apparently. We got 6 there. So 3+ years. So who's been here in the fitness industry for more than 3 years? It's pretty cool. Nice. Awesome. Lots of experience there. Next one. So is PT your full-time job? Yes or no?
I get it now.
Got it? It's pretty simple, man. It's just colours and shapes.
There's always one in the group.
Cool. So who has another job? I think
Yeah,
Brian. Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. All right. So what are the majority of your clients after? So in terms of goals, some clients all they will care about is booty gains. So
Don't want to get taller.
yeah, true.
That's my favourite.
Fat loss. Okay. So we'll spend a bit of time on nutrition. So not many people have clients that really want muscle growth. It's more fat loss, is it?
A few, but
Yeah.
mainly. it's-
Generally, the ones
yeah.
that want fat loss sometimes want muscle growth as well, but
Yeah.
I think they're more concerned about fat loss.
I'm not sure the list initially.
Yeah. Cool. So what do you want to learn the most from today's session? So those are the things that we'll be going through. What do you think stands out? What do you think you want to learn more about today? Okay, nutrition. Cool. Got you. Okay. So in your opinion, what is more important? And so there's no right answer here, as I said. What do you think? Okay, let's go. I was hoping you'd answer with that, not cardio.
Cardio.
So there was a right answer there. Okay, is your client list full? Pretty straightforward one here. Do you take clients gab or are you just a manager?
I do some sessions. I don't take
Okay.
all clients now.
Cool. Sweet. So most of us are pretty full here, which is good. Great sign. What trait do you value most in your clients? So I wish all my clients were on time. All the time.
All the time.
Are you late? No. Are you always late? No.
Nah, he's good.
I'm pretty good.
Is he? Wow.
Yeah, he is.
Thumbs up, mate.
I'm
Willing to learn. Consistency. Cool. What is the most common rate limiting factor to client success? So,
Peanut butter.
yeah, peanut butter. So is it motivation? Is it their social life? Is it their lack of knowledge? What is the rate limiting factor to their success? Motivation. Yeah. So sometimes you'll find that all of these play some role. But for some clients, it may be their motivation may be lacking so bad, and they still might have a lack of knowledge, and their social life might get in the way. But maybe their motivation is the rate limiting factor. Whereas for someone else, it might be like their social life. So they're all interrelated. But it's interesting. So do you currently do any self-learning or self-improvement in your own time? And this is obviously in the context of personal training and coaching. Cool, it's good to know. And the last one, what is your main goal for each client? So is it to educate, is it to get them results, get them to enjoy their session, or to motivate them? Yeah. Cool. So yeah, and this is another one where they're all interrelated, and you should be aiming to pretty much do all of these things. But yeah, it's good to know. So as a PT, results are obviously the number one thing because they're paying you for a service. So I was hoping that results was going to be the one that was most voted for there. But again, they're all interrelated, and you should be trying to do all of them. Cool. Sweet. And yeah, we're going to cover all the principles that need to be mastered if you want to master nutrition or help your clients master nutrition. So what we're going to do to start off with, so this is the nutrition pyramid. Who isn't familiar with the pyramid? Hands up if you're not familiar with it. So everyone knows this pyramid. Cool. So we're going to start off with a little activity. I'm going to get you guys to...
I don't know each step off the top of my head.
Do you know the pyramid, Andrew?
Not off the top of my head, no.
Not off the top of my head.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
So-
roughly you would. Roughly.
Yeah, but not the whole thing.
Okay. So in pairs, I'm going to give you guys like all the. So these are all the parts of the pyramid.
Yeah.
You just got to put it
I
in
feel like
order.
I've seen
So you
you
can do it with
already.
him. You guys can do it together. And one for the back.
Let's do it.
And then we'll have a bit of discussion.
Stressing.
You guys, we'll have a bit of discussion after it.
Let's. How did that all go? That's different. No, most, so first, like that's like necessary, and then that's like least important. Maybe, it's one or the other. Yeah, I reckon something. Nailed it. Go us. Nailed
Good
it.
Andrew struggling with that.
It's still fine.
Nervous, Andy?
Leave me alone.
Trying to start something.
Pardon?
Trying to start something.
What's my 5:45? Early. I haven't stopped all morning, it's like I'm stuck everywhere.
Yeah, came straight like I finished it
Yeah.
before. Got coffee.
Straight up, where'd you go?
No, just switches.
You should have gone to the alleyway. It's 10 minutes from work.
Where is the hideaway?
Hideaway from work is 10 minutes. You go.
I go that way. Coming from
Yeah.
finished at 12. I actually left at 15:15.
Really got to see your mum, didn't you?
Did I?
Yeah, I was like waiting for like
No girls.
carbohydrates. I'm like, oh, I've got this. I remember progress going down.
This will be interesting. Is everyone done?
Yeah.
Alright, we'll go through it. So we're gonna go through every group. I'm gonna start with these guys. So what did you guys have first?
Supplements.
So what when I say first, sorry. So the most important one start at the bottom. I should have probably mentioned that before.
What are micronutrients?
So I should have explained this before, but with the pyramid, so we've got all these sections of the pyramid, and there's also one that this is the most important one. This one that starts here, and then we've got least important up here, most important here. So what would you be your most important? Water and micros?
Don't
Okay.
take this.
And then second, so
No, you're not. Be certain.
what do you have on top of water and micronutrients?
Calories.
Calories. And then on top of that,
Hey, you can't change anything.
and then on top of that,
Adherence and compliance.
okay, and then on top of that one,
Meal
There's
timing.
another one if we
Yeah.
want. That'd be fixed.
and then supplements.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll line everyone's up. Andrew, what'd your group have?
We said macronutrients at the bottom.
Yeah.
Changed
So the
Then-
most important one at the
Yeah.
bottom, yeah?
And then micro and water.
Yeah.
And then calories.
Hold on. Yeah.
And then adherence. and meal timing. And supplements.
Timing.
Timing and then supplements.
Cool. And Steph, what's your group have?
Okay, we had from the bottom adherence compliance.
Yeah.
Then we had calories,
Yeah.
macros, micros,
Yeah.
timing, and then supplements.
Cool. Okay.
Is anyone right?
So,
No one's right?
so we'll just have a bit of a discussion. Okay. So I'm just going to ask you guys a few questions, and I want your reasoning behind why you picked certain things. So why did you guys pick water first?
Basically.
Water is super important.
You can't survive without water, but you can survive with any microbes.
Okay. Yeah. And then what if? So do you know what adherence mean? Adherence, compliance. So what if they're not? What if you tell them to drink 3 liters of water a day?
But whether
But
they
then-
actually do it or not.
Yeah.
What if they're not actually even doing it? So what if the adherence isn't there? So does the water, all of a sudden, does the water matter? Well, I would say this matters a lot more. Yeah? So, and same thing with calories. So good, perfect to have calories here, but again, if they're not following their calories, so you tell a client to eat 2,000 calories a day, how do you know they're doing that? Like, they need to actually be doing that. You telling them to eat 2,000 calories a day doesn't really mean anything unless they're actually adhering to it. So, I would say these guys are pretty spot on with adherence. If adherence isn't present, then really nothing else, the importance of everything else diminishes if adherence isn't present. Okay, so with the nutrition pyramid, adherence does start at the bottom. It is the most important one. Calories. So Andrew, why did your group go with micros in front of calories? Or macros in front of
Looking at it
calories?
now, I don't know why we did that.
Yeah.
Doesn't
So
make sense,
calories, total calories determine change in body composition.
Yeah.
And then obviously macronutrients make up your calories,
Yep.
but calories does come before macros and micros, yeah? You guys pretty much nailed this here. So timing isn't as important as everything else. And supplements, they just supplement the diet. But if someone has a certain, not a disease, but a certain circumstance they're in where they need to have supplements, maybe it's iron, maybe they need to have iron supplements to help with their iron levels. Well, supplements might then take precedence over some other parts of the nutrition pyramid. But in general, for the most part, for the majority of people, supplements will come at the top, okay? So we'll go through the actual pyramid now. So as I said, calories determine whether you gain weight, lose weight, or maintain weight. And they need to be in relation to your energy expenditure based on your goals and your desired rate of progress. Next one, macronutrients. So establishing a macronutrient intake to make up daily calories based on the function of each macro. Does anyone know what the recommended protein intake is to maximize muscle growth for like a strength, for just a client who wants to gain muscle?
Like 1 pound, like body weight,
Yeah.
or 2 per kilo.
Kilos? Yeah, so I would say like 2 grams per kilo of body weight. So if we look at that, so protein goes like this. This is about 2 grams here. So 2 grams per kilo of body weight. So this is where we get the peak, the best result from protein intake. Anything more than that though, it starts to level off. Okay, so that's what happens to protein. In terms of fat, as a macronutrient, goes something like this. So this is about 0.5 grams per kilo. Once we hit the 0.5 grams per kilo, we don't really get any more benefits from more fat intake. Okay, but it is important that we hit the 0.5. Okay, so for like an 80 kilogram male, that'd be like 40 grams of fat a day. Anything over that though isn't really going to give you any more benefits, but it might help with your adherence. So that's something else you need to take into account. And with carbs, we see something like this. So the more carbs you have, really the better it is for your performance in the gym. Okay, but then if you have too many carbs, obviously you're going to go over your calories and it can cause other problems. But for the most part, we want to have about 2 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. If you look at it in terms of a range, looking at like 1.6 grams to maybe 2.2, depending on the person. Fat, as I said, a minimum 0.5 per kilogram of body weight, and then carbs can just make up the rest of your calories, okay? Because we do get a lot of benefits from carbs. Better training performance, just generally feeling better, and even satiety. We feel fuller after eating carbohydrates, yeah? So that's macronutrients. And then we've got macros and water, meal timing, and supplements, and then adherence at the bottom. So that's what the nutrition pyramid looks like. And when you're working with your clients, it is important to take that into account. Their adherence needs to be number one, so you need to work on that. You need to do everything you can to make sure that they are adhering to the plan, to help them improve their adherence to the plan. Then focus on calories, because that is going to be the determining factor to whether they gain, lose or maintain weight. Then their macronutrient intake, their micronutrients and water, which are, very important, but there are a few things that come ahead of that on the pyramid. Meal timing doesn't matter, but it can help with adherence. So even though meal timing doesn't really have an effect on body composition, it can help with adherence, and supplements come last. Thanks, mate. Alright, so the nutrition fundamentals now for fat loss. So we all know what an energy deficit is. I'm sure everyone's heard of that here. So we need to establish a deficit, and the deficit looks something like that. So if that is our intake, energy intake, so with food, drink, whatnot, and that's our output, that green part there is a deficit. The larger that deficit, the more weight the client is going to lose. So we need to get the client in a deficit if the goal is fat loss. So what happens when they are in a deficit? When your body is no longer to form ATP sufficiently, your body starts to liberate fat and use fat to form ATP. And that's how you lose weight. Okay, and ATP is the energy currency for all our cells. So everything we do in our body, everything that happens in our body, all the movements we do when we train, all require ATP. Even muscle growth requires ATP. And when we are in a deficit, then ATP is no longer able to be sufficiently produced. We start burning fat. We start using fat to produce ATP, yeah? Now, metabolism. So lots of people use the term metabolism. They just throw it around and they don't really know the meaning of it. Metabolism is the sum of the cost of energy for all chemical processes that occur within the body, such as breathing, processing food, movement, exercise. So really you could say that metabolism is how much energy you burn on a daily basis. And then you might get some clients who come to you, maybe some overweight clients, and they'll say, oh, I have a really slow metabolism. Well, that's probably not the case, because BMR for an overweight person is going to be a lot higher than BMR for someone who weighs a lot less than them. So in fact, their metabolism is a lot better than someone who might weigh half their weight, because they're burning so much more energy throughout the day. And metabolism isn't the problem when it comes to fat loss. It's calories, really, and adherence to the plan, like we saw on the pyramid. Now, it all sounds pretty straightforward, establishing a deficit, eat less, but that is very hard to implement in practice. So we do need to take psychology into account when trying to get them into a deficit. Okay, and we'll talk a little bit about that later, because that is generally the rate limiting factor to someone's fat loss goals. It's their mindset. It's the psychology. Like I mentioned before, the person with the rigid mindset, it's going to be very hard for you to get them into an energy deficit and help them sustain it, yeah? So for muscle growth now, so we need to be in the opposite of a deficit. We need to be in a calorie surplus to gain weight. Okay, and that looks like that. So the intake needs to be overriding the output, okay, slightly. We don't want to be in a massive surplus, and we don't need to be in a massive surplus to gain weight, because your calorie intake doesn't dictate how much muscle growth occurs in the body. So eating more food, and more calories, doesn't mean you're gaining more and more muscle. So we only need to be in a slight surplus in most cases for muscle growth. So how do muscles grow? If I ask you guys this question, what would you tell me? Someone answer it. So how do muscles grow?
You just train them.
You train them? Yeah.
Like the muscle fiber break down, and when it regrows, you use some protein.
Yeah, so the protein comes in, helps you recover, helps you repair the muscles. Yeah, so we call that like protein balance. So when you train and when you eat protein, what happens is your body starts synthesizing and constructing new muscle proteins. So like the sarcomeres inside the muscle fiber, your body starts building more and more. But then when you're not training, you're not eating protein, your body is also breaking them down. So your body is going through a constant flux of muscle protein breakdown and muscle protein synthesis, and it's constantly occurring. So what we need to do is we need to be in a positive protein balance. So we need our body to be you need to be constructing muscle protein over time. We need that to be exceeding the breakdown of protein. So it looks something like this. It'll be easy to understand if I draw it. So this is muscle protein synthesis, there, and this is muscle protein breakdown. Okay, when you eat, this goes up, that goes up, and then when you're not eating, muscle protein breakdown takes over. So we need to make sure we're eating high amounts of protein and training to ensure this line here, on the net balance, you're creating more protein than your body is breaking it down. Okay, and over time, yeah, your muscles will get bigger because sarcomeres start to accumulate, and then the muscle fibers actually start to grow. Okay, so positive protein balance is what we need over time for muscle growth, and we do that by training and by eating protein. We also need water, because if the hydration status of the muscle cells is inadequate, then the muscle cells won't actually be able to synthesize all these new proteins. So if you're always dehydrated, then this, all of a sudden, the importance of that starts to diminish, because your muscle cells aren't hydrated, they can't actually function properly. As I said, we need protein. So does everyone know the difference between essential and non-essential proteins?
Yeah, so I think there are roughly 20 amino acids, like 20 kind of.
Yeah, 20, yeah.
But eight kind of the essential, because we can't produce them.
Yeah, that's right. So the essential proteins, we can't produce them.
And 12 of them we can produce.
Correct.
So I have to eat like variety of
Yep.
meat or protein
Yep.
source.
That's right. And the essential proteins, are what actually spike the muscle protein synthesis. Okay, so the non-essential amino acids, they don't do much when it comes to this. So that's why we need essential amino acids. Okay, they're the ones that our body can't produce, and they are the ones that increase our protein balance, as I said. Okay, and we need energy. So as I said, we need calories. Eating a low amount of calories may be counterproductive to muscle building, because there is limited energy available for actually synthesizing and constructing the new muscle tissue. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about that? All good? Sweet. So that's pretty much in a nutshell how muscle grows. We just need to eat protein and train to ensure that our protein balance is positive over time. Okay, flexible dieting now. So some people see flexible dieting as just if it fits your macros, but really it's a lot more than that. So I see flexible dieting more of a mindset opposed to an actual diet. Flexible dieting is positively correlated with less binge eating disorders, or less occurrence of binge eating, less occurrence of eating disorders, better compliance to the diet, better results as well. And here is just a little infographic that pretty much shows you guys flexible dieting is not placing macro targets on a pedestal, eating only junk food as long as it fits, ignoring mindset, habits and behaviors towards dieting, bashing others for their dietary choices, and flexible dieting is definitely not a magic solution to body composition and health. Okay, what it is though is being adaptive with your calorie and macronutrient intake, which I'm going to talk about soon, eating an inclusive diet and a balanced diet, prioritizing mindset habits, very important, keeping your diet to yourself, and a philosophy that emphasizes education, preference, and autonomy with your diet. Okay, so that's really what flexible dieting is. Now, rigid dieting is pretty much correlated with like high levels of depression, binge eating, going off plan in terms of the diet. It's correlated with so many negatives when it comes to dieting, but it does have its place. So when you get a beginner who's never really dieted before, you can't just throw them into the whole flexible dieting world without really teaching them the basics and teaching them how to have restraint and how to be slightly rigid. So you do need to teach clients how to have a bit of a rigid approach to their nutrition when they first start, and then transition them into flexible dieting. And we're going to be talking about that soon as well. Now the whole adaptive mindset thing, I try and really drill this into my clients. I think it's probably one of the most important factors to client success when it comes to fat loss is having an adaptive mindset. So flexibility is a product of an adaptive mindset, and unlike rigidity, it doesn't thrive on perfection and strictness in dieting behavior. Okay, so that's what rigid dieting does. It thrives on perfection and strictness. Flexible dieting, though, doesn't. Flexibility allows for maintenance of good eating habits, a healthy relationship with food, and less psychological strain. Okay, and these are three qualities that I think is very important for you to get your clients to adopt over time if you want them to succeed in nutrition. So inherent adaptability, which I will explain, having a broad perspective, and having perpetual habits. All very important. And if you can help your client do all of these things, then they're pretty much going to develop those three traits there. So they need to be comfortable with the fact that perfection doesn't exist. If you undergo a 10-week diet, like there's always going to be an obstacle that gets in your way. It's never going to be a perfect diet. Now I have this one client who's always got parties on the weekend because she's got to take her kids somewhere. There's always food, and I told her, I'm like, life isn't perfect. There's always going to be something that gets in your way, and you need to be inherently adaptive. If something pops up, you just need to adapt to it. You need to prepare your meals. You need to make a plan. You need to find a way to just get around it. Okay, you can't just let that stuff get in your way. You can't just say, after this weekend, I'm going to get back into it, but then something else will pop up, and it's just spinning your wheels, right? Basic knowledge of calories and macros. If they have a lack of knowledge, they're going to struggle. Accepting your circumstances. So some people will start a diet and they'll get all hungry, they'll get moody, lack of energy, and they'll start complaining. Well, when you're dieting, that's a byproduct of dieting. So you need to accept your circumstances. If a client comes to me and they're on a diet, they tell me they're hungry, I say that's awesome, because you're in a calorie deficit. You're supposed to be hungry. Like that's how you know it's working though. Like that's how you know you're in a deficit, when you start getting hungry. If you're not hungry, are you really in a deficit? Well, I'm not. I'm not sure. It's questionable. It's questionable. So now you do need to find ways to mitigate the hunger, yes, but hunger will arise. So sooner or later. A lifestyle change needs to be slowly ingrained as well. And like I said before, when the client comes to you, she wants to lose 10 kilos in 5 weeks and whatnot. Well, it's in your best interest to try and ingrain a lifestyle change if you want her to continue on after 5 weeks, okay, or for her to get better results in the long term. As I said, if she does lose those 5 kilos, chances are she's just going to put some weight back on, if not more. No on and off switch. Like I mentioned before, you don't want to see dieting as being on and off. Okay, again, lifestyle change, that's what we're after here. Utilizing a flexible approach to eating, so the 80-20 rule here, where 80% of your food intake can be, or should be, healthy, wholesome, whole grain foods, and 20% can come from foods of preference, foods of choice. Okay. Healthy relationship with food, very important. Understand that results take time. Don't let obstacles derail your progress. Make sure your goals are realistic, because you're only setting yourself up for failure if they're not. And if the client, like I said before, if the client really wants to set this goal and you know that it's not achievable, it's your job to try and point them in the right direction. And having a good life balance. So if you can tick all of these boxes over time with your clients, they will develop an adaptive mindset, and they will adopt all those qualities there. And their chances of succeeding when it comes to fat loss are going to, increase tenfold. And I've found that it's definitely the case with a lot of my clients who have perpetual habits, who have a broad perspective, so they think in the long term, and who are able to adapt to their circumstances. Something comes up, they know how to get around it. And that's super important if you are planning on dieting and losing weight. So it's all well and good to say that adopting an adaptive mindset or helping a client adopt an adaptive mindset is going to help you with fat loss, but there are a number of factors that can prevent an individual from actually attaining the mindset, the adaptive mindset. So we do need to be aware of these things. Poor nutritional knowledge, cognitive disinhibition, where people will sometimes overeat in response to, could be a trigger food, could be a lot of things, could be stress, tend to overeat. Rigid restraint, people who are really rigid with their diet, it's going to be very hard for you to get them to adopt an adaptive mindset, and it might take time. Poor awareness of hunger, and this is where hunger ratings come into play. Sometimes if I get my client to do like a food diary, I get them to do hunger and satiety ratings after their meals, like out of 10. Like how hungry were you before the meal, and how satisfied are you after the meal, out of 10. This just allows them to understand where they are at in terms of hunger and how their body responds to certain meals. Extreme goals and dichotomous thinking, which is just thinking in black and white terms, good or bad. Okay, these things can really get in the way of you helping your client achieve that mindset. So I've come up with these 5 factors here that you can help your client. So these issues need to be addressed in order of priority as it relates to the individual's well-being goals with the objective nutritional coaching. So your objective should be to go through these 5 things. This is what I've done with my clients, and I find it successful. So assume an infinite approach to your client's nutrition, focus on education and improve your client's knowledge, address behaviors, environment, and the cognitive disinhibitions, so their trigger foods, or why do they overeat. Address those factors. Try and get them to transition from a rigid to a flexible diet or mindset, and improve their awareness of hunger and satiety. If you can go through all these things, you're definitely going to override all those factors up there. Okay, so those are 5 very important steps to successful nutritional coaching with your clients. Any questions about those things there, or the adaptive mindset as a whole? Cool. Now, as I said before, when you do get a client who is a beginner, you can't just throw them into the deep end and straight into flexible dieting. There are numerous steps that you have to go through beforehand to teach them the basics, the fundamentals, and then proceed to go into flexible dieting. So, it can be resembled to learning how to swim before jumping to the deep end. Okay? We need to do the same with nutrition. So using the right dietary approach based on the client's level of knowledge. So if you have a client who's come in and who's been flexible dieting for a long time, and does understand nutrition and does know all these things, you can maybe start them on step 3. Okay, but if it's someone else who's come in and they're really new to dieting, it's a different ball game. So we've got step 1, which is just dietary awareness. So educating the client, creating habits and behaviors, and food journal, like I said, can come in handy. That's step 1. You can then transition to step 2, which is having a little bit of rigidity in place just to teach restraint. So as I said, it's not all about going straight into a flexible mindset or into flexible dieting. You do need to teach the client how to have restraint. It goes a long way. So what you can do is you can match foods to macros and get them to self-create meal plans, to make meal plans on their own. So we don't here at JPS, we don't write meal plans for the clients, but sometimes I get them to create their own meal plans and stick to them just to teach that restraint. Okay. After that, you can then go into step 3, which is having a little more of a flexible dietary restraint. Okay, so you're incorporating flexibility and rigidity at once. So you can give them some macronutrient numbers to follow, so protein, carbs, and fats, and they can eat freely dependent on those targets. They then start to view foods as macros. So instead of viewing pasta or demonizing pasta, you start to view pasta as a carbohydrate, a good source of carbohydrate. That can be step 3. And then also they start tracking calories and macros. And then step 4, which is, not many people are ready for step 4, or not many clients are ready for step 4, and that's just intuitive eating. It does take a long time before you can really master this approach here. And that's just, eating intuitively. So based on your hunger, based on how you feel, some people can really go out of hand. You just tell them to eat however they like. So it is important that you go through the stepwise approach, okay? And as I said, dietary awareness needs to be established before moving through the diet continuum. So I definitely recommend trying to do this with all beginner clients. So,
what time do you do all of these things with the client? Like you book them in for nutrition session, or you do all this during the 30 minutes
yeah.
session?
So I try and do a lot of this with the check-in. So when they send me their email, I'll really try and give them heaps of feedback and educate them about what they can improve on. What have they done throughout the week? Have they created any new habits? Things like that. And then, I do it during the session as well. And if the client really needs a lot of help in terms of nutrition, then sometimes I have booked them in just to come in and have a bit of a chat about nutrition. Or, create a meal plan together. They're struggling to create a meal plan. We just go through it together. Things like that. But I do like to do a lot of it through the check-in, just through email. Just educate them, things like that. Especially this first part. Like when they send me their food journal through, I'll do my best to give them as much feedback as possible and to ensure that each week they're progressing, they're getting better at what they're trying to do.